everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Modcast. I'm Jeff Ketchum, joined by Jason, Chad, Anwar. What's going on?
It's like a feedback or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds kind of weird. Is that on my end? What the hell's going on?
I'm not getting it. Let me mute myself.
I had an extra window. I thought I had an extra window, but I got rid of it. I don't think it's me.
I don't hear it anymore, but nevertheless, glad to be with you here on the Modcast. Do us a favor as you come in to the Specs chat. Engage. Send us questions. Send us super chats. Super chats go to the top of the pile, but we'll try to be as interactive as we possibly can. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, all of those things. Thank you, Jeff Collins. Smash that like button. Like the Longhorns smashed the modern day record. I'm not even quite sure what it is, but I know since Anwar's been here in 2014, they have not had 11 guys invited to the combine. Fellas, I didn't know that we would have this headline today to talk about, but I feel like certainly Anwar and I, and Jason, you two, probably in the 3-2-1, man, it feels like for years we've been talking about there will be a day when Texas is back and they have a big number at the combine. But to see it today and to see the likes of Keelan Robinson invited, I wondered about Jordan Whittington, but I assumed that he would get an invite after he was invited to the Senior Bowl. Onward, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on 11 guys going to the combine? Is it a big deal? Is it a semi-big deal? Is it? We know it's not no deal, but what size of a deal is it for the Longhorns to be back in the NFL draft forefront, like having 11 guys at the combine allows you to be?
I think it's a seismic deal, if we're being quite honest with you, Catch. And I think the reason why I would call it seismic and epic and every other word that you could potentially use is the thing you talk about since I've been here. The thing that I've heard since I have been here is, the problem that Texas has in recruiting is that all these other programs are putting guys in the NFL. And, if Texas could just start putting guys in the NFL, you're going to want to come here, right? And I've heard that was the argument why Georgia was so successful in recruiting for a long period of time. And Alabama obviously was so successful in recruiting. And I would have to listen to you, and I had to listen to Jason, trying to tell me, if they could just start getting guys into the league, people are going to want to come here on the defensive side of the ball, or some offensive skill positions. So now to look at it and all these things that we've been talking about for all these years, to finally have 11 guys there. That 11 guys won't get drafted, but to still have 11 guys there, that to me is about one of the biggest offseason developments as far as Steve Sarkisian being able to, recruit guys and be able to. And then there's the other part, real quick. Not only recruit guys, but then being able to sell guys on being a role player. Keelan Robinson, Jordan Whittington. These are kind of role players for Texas. And he's able to now go to guys and say, hey, if you just play your role, I will make sure you can get a shot to go into the NFL. That's how huge it is from a recruiting standpoint, from how you work your program standpoint. Those things to me stand out.
Jason? Big deal, little deal, kind of a deal? Anwar's that big deal.
I'm a big deal too, but to be clear, Anwar, I always said if you win games,
that's true. That's very true. Very.
I get an eye roll from Anwar, Chad, every time I say, like, "Oh God, here we go." But this is a big deal to
pull out
me.
the NFL statistics today. We don't have time for a 3-hour show.
You just wait. I'll get my turn eventually.
Oh, no.
I'm going to talk for 40 minutes in, Anwar. Here we go. No, but I think it's a big deal for the reasons Anwar said in large part. I mean, I look at this for me almost from a recruiting perspective, right? How's this going to affect recruiting? And Anwar's right, man. This is stuff you can sell to recruits. Hey, come here. We're going to develop you. I mean, listen, that was a problem for Tom Herman. That was a problem going back to Charlie Strong's staff. That was something that was used against Texas in recruiting. They don't develop players. Hey, they'll get the high-end talent, but they don't develop these players. Now Texas, and I'm going to steal from, I'm assuming that on our board, was Bevo, somebody had the numbers. So, Texas is right up there. Yes, Michigan was at 16. Texas is right up there with Washington, one more than Bama Texas has, and two more than Georgia, if his numbers are right. Three more than Ohio State. I haven't gone through and counted them myself.
I think those numbers are wrong, Jason.
Are they? Oh, damn it, Bevo, Phil. Well, in any regard, at any rate, they're in the conversation. They're in that same vicinity with the truly elite of the elite. Will all these guys get drafted? Probably not, but it's going to be a large number that do. And those are all things invited to the combine, obviously going to the college football playoff, guys getting drafted in large numbers. Those are signs of a healthy program. Those are signs of development. That's what guys want, dude. We can talk about academics and living in Austin, and some of that is important to some kids more than others, of course. But what really matters to these kids is two things: playing for championships, get me to the NFL. Texas is one game away from playing for a national championship. Now they can sell, hey, we're getting guys to the NFL. We're starting to develop guys. This is going to be a yearly thing. This is going to be the norm and not the exception. So, yeah, I'm with Almar. I think it's a big deal.
Hey, Catch, by the way, I'm looking at a website now. We'll have to just do some more confirmations or do our own math. One website says Michigan has 18.
Yep.
With Florida State having 13. Washington having 13. Georgia having 11. And Texas having 11. Followed by Alabama at 10. And the list kind of goes all the way down. And I think for Chad's purposes, I believe Texas A&M had 5, if I'm looking at this correctly. I just want to go back up. But that looked like the top end of it.
Yeah, no, I believe. There you go. Cody. Cody's back, baby. Yeah. Cody's back just where we need him. Just so you guys know, full disclosure in House Divided earlier today, Cody had all of this information for us and was able to be right on top of it. I think.
So apparently Bevo Phil can only count accurately up to 11. After that, all bets are off.
Cody didn't have Georgia in there though.
No, he did.
Did he? Did he have Georgia on that list?
Yeah, he's got right here. Second list right here.
Okay, gotcha. I didn't see the second part.
Yeah, he had that. He had it in order of he had the playoff teams, which the minimum number among the playoff teams this year is Alabama's 10. So, everybody. Now it wasn't everybody that had 10 or more didn't get to the playoffs, but the other two schools that would have been in that mix, obviously Florida State and Georgia, 5 and 6 on the final rankings to get into the playoffs. So it was almost a prerequisite that if you want to be in the playoffs at least a year ago, you needed that level of talent. Chad, I'll circle back to you. We talked about this in the show. Thank you, Cody. I left out Penn State in part because I don't respect Penn State. Oklahoma with 3.
I was going to say, that's why I put it up there, Catch. Oklahoma with 3. If you're a Texas fan and the 11-3 doesn't make you happy, I'm not sure we can make you happy today, because that would make me happy if I love the burnt orange today.
I mean, you could take A&M and Oklahoma, add them up together and make it A&M OU baby, and you still got 3 to spare. So
there you go.
It's a really big deal. Look, guys, Chad, I want to throw it to you and get your reaction. I just want to say this. As it relates to the NFL draft stuff, I have been convinced for years that a big part of the pushback against my NFL draft data is deep down Texas fans know our guys aren't getting drafted. And so it's a reminder of the fact that when you see that data, I think Texas fans have pushed against it. Once you start getting 10 guys drafted a year in the NFL, those NFL draft numbers feel personal all of a sudden. I think my analysis, it's on its way back, baby. It's on its way back. This year, after the NFL draft, when the Longhorns hit double digits, potentially with 10-ish, I don't know that any of us believe in Keelan Robinson getting drafted. But, man, if he pops a big number, you never know. But I think everybody else on that list, my next guy that I'm somewhat concerned about is Jordan Whittington. But I think he's going to get drafted, so I think there's a real good chance they hit double digits. But don't hate on the data. The data is going to have a revolution because now people will care about the NFL draft again instead of hating to be reminded of it, Chad.
Yeah, data kind of feels different when you got 10 of them, doesn't it?
It does. I think so.
Yeah, the data feels different when you got double digits or more. Yeah, this is a huge deal for these names rolling on the bottom here. It's part of the process that it's the end of that process. Obviously, the NFL then determines what they are. But fellas, one of the things I hate about the recruiting stuff and this stuff is when people try to play the "it doesn't matter" thing. Drives me nuts. They try to use one little example for why it doesn't matter. They'll see one thing about, Khalil Mack played at Buffalo. What was his star rating? That just goes to show you it doesn't matter. No. Stop. Like, that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. That's an outlier. You can't use that to discuss the whole thing. This is the next, and Jason said the key word, development. That's what this is about. Why is Bama? Why is Georgia? Why is Ohio State? Because Mel Kiper and those dudes sit at the desk every year and they go, well, what's that, 9? That's 9. That's 9 drafted. That's 9. And we go over that number every single year. And Kirby has now caught Saban and gone past him. That's what matters. And I understand you want to win on the field. Jason's obviously right about that. But in terms of get the badasses, develop them into college badasses, and then get them to Indianapolis. That's what this means. They invite people to Indianapolis because they're badasses. And now Texas, at least according to these folks, has 11 badasses to look at. 11 guys we're going to put on TV. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal stuff, and it is one more than Bama, too. That's got to feel good if you love Texas.
Yeah, and I just want to, once again, Chad, because I want to agree with everything that you're saying. And I think the other great part, like I said, the thing that continues to as impresses me is that you literally you're almost at the badass point when literally your role players are getting invites. Like last year, Roshan Johnson got an invite, right? And Roshan Johnson got drafted, and Roshan Johnson was the person that going into the season was like, man, that guy's going to be, hell on wheels. And, if it's not for Bijan, who knows where that guy would have been drafted. To be able to say that, to have Keelan Robinson as a guy who's been a special teams guy for the past couple of years, and that's pretty much been his bread and butter. And that guy gets something. And I don't care what Rodolfo has to say about Jordan Whittington, but there are NFL teams that look at Jordan Whittington and are saying to themselves, that guy could be a guy in the NFL. Like, this is creme de la creme. This ain't pro day, where if you're on the team, you get a chance to just show up. Like, you've been out the league for 3 years. You can show up at a pro day.
David Ash will be at pro day throwing the ball.
So will DeJay. Like, he'll probably be there as well, right? So David Ash will be there. DeJay will be there, like all that kind of stuff, right? But to be able to now, and especially you start catching, some of the things we've talked about, like, and Jason, you and I talked about this morning. What do you tell the receivers, right? I just brought in all these receivers, and then what about these young guys who aren't playing? Man, you can tell them, hey, man, just wait a couple of years. Man, even if you're a role player in my system, like, I'm so good, you're going to get a look. Like, I just think there's a seismic effect of it. But I'm impressed by guys like Roshan Keelan and Jordan Whittington being able to get invited.
Chad, can you put the ticker back up for just a sec? I actually wanted to use it because I think, Jason, the thing that stands out to me, these 11 guys are 11 different stories. So this what this list is 11 5-stars or even 11 4-stars. And it was like, look at this massive amount of talent that Texas has done in recruiting, because those guys haven't hit yet, right? It really started in the 2002 class, or 2022. The Kelvin Bankses of the world from that first group, they won't be juniors until next year. But what you see here is you get a JT Sanders and you get an Xavier Worthy. So you've got guys who are big-time prospects coming out that lived up to the hype, something that Texas has long held against them. You can look at transfer portal. Hey, Adonai Mitchell, what did he want to do? He wanted to come 1 year away from Georgia to Texas, off to the NFL. He played in the playoff, third straight year. Here he is. but you also have some real interesting pieces, and Keelan Robinson for that matter as well, right? You've got a couple of guys from the portal.
Yeah, Watts too.
Yeah, I completely brain farted about Watts. Yeah. But you can look at Ford, Sweat, Murphy, Christian Jones, Jonathan Brooks, who's been Jason's guy from the very beginning. But that was a guy that when Texas offered him, he had like 3 offers. And one of them was
they were his first
power offer, right?
Yeah.
It was like Houston Christian or something like that.
Houston, man, you got a good memory. Houston Christian, University of Louisiana. Yeah. So, yeah.
So long ago, it might have been Houston Baptist.
I thought it was Houston Baptist, but I thought it was Houston Baptist.
Was it Houston Baptist? Or?
No, it's Houston Christian in the rival.
Houston Christian? Yeah. You just made up that school. That school doesn't exist.
I'm looking at his profile right now, Anwar.
I'm not looking at it. If you told me it was Houston Baptist, I'd go, oh, Houston Baptist. But Jason's looking at the profile and he's saying it's Houston Christian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking there was that Herb Hand offered an offensive lineman from Houston Baptist at one time. I think that's
but it literally changed on where last 2 to 3 years. Like that school went from Houston Baptist to Houston Christian.
So you guys are both right. Everybody's right.
Oh, okay.
Right? When does that ever happen?
Same school.
How do you know this, by the way, Chad?
You know me. I've got all these details in my
crap
head.
Bag on more crap bag.
It's the crap bag. That's why we call this right here. This is the crap bag of meaningless knowledge.
There's a lot, guys, though, of development here. A lot of names. This isn't in future years. We're going to see a lot of guys that were big time recruits that populate this list more densely than we do this year. But I think you're talking Brooks. And I think when we're looking at the ticker here, once you get to like Christian Jones, 2, Byron Murphy, 3, Sweat, 4, Jalen Ford, 5. Like half the guys on this list almost were 2- and 3-star guys that nobody 2 or 3 or 4 years ago was saying, oh, combine definitely for that guy. So I think one of the cool things that the Texas coaches can talk about here is that there's a little bit of success everywhere. Portal guys, check. Big time recruits, check. Development, big time check. And then I also think, Jason, when we start talking about, I was thinking about Kenny Baker today. Best thing that can happen to Kenny Baker is that Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy go really early, and then they can point to those guys and say, hey, we develop. This is proof of that. We can turn you into a 1st or 2nd round pick. It's been a long time at some of these positions where Texas has been able to say that. And while Texas is recruiting well, this is part of the slim margins that Texas adds to what they're already doing. That's how you go from the number 5 class to the number 3 class, and then to eventually a number 1 overall kind of class. Texas has been knocking on the door. I do think that less of the combine, but more of draft day, when at the end of day 2, if they say something like Texas leads all, or Texas and Michigan lead all schools with guys drafted in the top 3 rounds, 7 apiece. And it's like, oh, like those are the headlines that Texas will really be able to use. And for once, you won't have to read on Orange Bloods. Anwar and I write about how, it's not that big. I don't know, like whatever the hell it is that we write after the draft. I feel like Anwar, we've written a little bit of everything, but I do think I can't help but think about back in the day when Texas fans were so thirsty to matter, so thirsty to find something to clutch onto and say, this is going to impact recruiting. I always think of Charlie Strong meeting with Roger Goodell and Texas fans convincing themselves Goodell came here to talk about Charlie's 5 golden rules or whatever those things were called, right? And then it was like, NFL players are going to find out that Goodell came to talk to Charlie. They're going to want to come here. No, that is not what never was going to be the case. You know what makes guys want to come here? I can't remember who said it. It was Jason, because I was going to correct him. It's championships. It's the NFL draft, and the thing that he forgot, it's NIL. Pay my ass. Yeah. Show me the money. But those 3 things together, Texas now has had the NIL. They now have competed for a championship and won the last Big 12 title that they'll ever compete for. But the NFL drafting, it helps. Trust me, these high school kids will talk about it. They'll notice it. They'll retweet it. This will be something that absolutely elevates Texas beyond where they've already elevated.
Well, the next step is yes, getting guys drafted, because that's what people are truly going to remember, right? The combine stuff is a nice talking point because it's a precursor probably to getting guys drafted. But the draft numbers are truly what's going to matter. The next step is getting guys drafted. I mean, the Alabamas and Georgias and Michigans, they always have, Ohio State's, we're talking number 1, top 5 draft picks. I mean, Texas, that's the next step of progression. But you bring up a good point, Ketch, that I hadn't really thought about as that list scrolls along. Jonathan Brooks, he was a 4-star player, but he wasn't a Rivals 250 guy or anything like that. Worthy, very highly rated. Whittington, pretty highly rated. Sanders, JT Sanders. Christian Jones, guys, he was a 3-star defensive tackle that almost committed to Vanderbilt. Texas came in and swooped in at the last minute, got him to commit to Texas, make him an offensive lineman, and now he's looking to get drafted. Byron Murphy, a 3-star player, he was barely top 50 in the state of Texas. Tavondre Sweat, I never understood this one. Tavondre Sweat, coming out of Huntsville, was a 265-pound, 3-star defensive end, ranked number 110 in the state. Okay, we're not talking about, when we're looking at like Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State, they're putting up these big numbers, but I don't know that you can credit their development the way that you can Texas, because they're bringing in guys that were, half their class is top 50 in the country. So how much truly do you have to develop those guys? I mean, Texas has maybe one of those guys on this list, JT Sanders. So, I mean, it truly is to have this many players at the combine. You can really talk development because, like you said, Ketch, a lot of these guys were not the most highly recruited prospects coming out of high school. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, too. There's 2 things I was thinking about as you guys have been talking, right? The one, you kind of touched on it, but it's one of them is Ketch's guy, right? Christian Jones. I mean, this is a 6-year guy. And look, typically the rule of thumb on 5-year guys or 6-year guys is that those guys ain't good. Because if they were good, they would be in the NFL. And it's very rare that you see 5th and 6-year guys where all of a sudden now you're talking about them going to the NFL. No, they're usually just hanging around another year because they just don't want to move on in life. Like nobody's under the belief that Casey Thompson is going to get drafted after another season in college football.
Where's Alex when we need him on this?
More things you guys are going to pay up for, right? And you got a guy like Christian Jones who, a couple of years ago, Alex would give you some of his ratings on Christian Jones. He was bad, wasn't good. And all of a sudden, Kyle Flood comes in here, and you saw a little bit of it as far as like he was able to do with an older guy with Tope Amade towards the end. Tope Amade became a real player, and then you were able to see that with Christian Jones. And Christian Jones goes from just being a guy who, I mean, my goodness, if COVID doesn't happen and he doesn't get an extra year of eligibility, but that guy's probably just working a normal job right now, and he gets a chance to come back. I think that, that says a lot as far as development is concerned, right? And the other thing I was thinking about, too, when you guys were talking, and I was thinking about the NFL draft, and I was thinking about the selling point. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? Nick Saban's retired. Harbaugh's moved on. Imagine a draft where you've got the Texas coach, Steve Sarkisian, sitting there on draft day with his guys at a Byron Murphy table or at a Tavondre table, and then being able to interact, and then that's a selling point, right? Because that's what Saban would do. Every year we saw him on ESPN or NFL Network, and that was a selling point, like, look how badass I am. This is just what we do. Imagine if, and now all of a sudden Sark is that guy that does that, this year, and is able to sell the school and be able to get interviewed about all the players drafted the following year. Maybe he's at the table with Quinn Ewers and whoever else is drafted. You know what I'm saying? Like the being able to sell that point there. So those are 2 things I thought about Christian Jones. I just talk about Sark being able to be there during the draft and be able to let everybody know and every recruit know, hey, we're kind of a badass program here. You might want to get down.
Anwar, that's a great point. And as you're talking, I'm looking at that Alabama logo behind you. And the progress in college football to me is so much about the logos on television sometimes. Y'all know I'm into logos and uniforms and everything. But as the playoffs were coming up, I kept thinking, look at that Texas logo and Washington for that matter. Two logos that aren't maybe there every year, but we're used to seeing Bama's. You're used to seeing Michigan or Ohio State, but to see that logo that much, and then you bring up a great point, to get to the draft time, you're not a combine time. Texas, that logo is going to pop up on the screen over and over again. Hey, look, Tavondre Sweat's about to run his 40. Hey, look, Keelan Robinson's going to run his 40. What's he going to run? Hey, look, Xavier Worthy is running drills. What do they do when Xavier Worthy runs those drills? They put him and his logo up on the screen. And then, like you said, then Sark goes to the draft, wherever that is this year. I don't have that one in my head of where we're going for the draft. They move it around now. But then he'll be there, like you said. He'll get to be there, and you get that shot. I think of Calipari in the NBA. He's like always there because he's got 2 or 3 guys ready to go every year. But, yeah, Saban has been there. And like you said, now Sark gets to be that. And Catch, to your discussion about the development versus the 5 stars, this is, to me, a question a lot of people get wrong, especially when you're a fan of like Texas or Alabama. What is more important, getting a 4 or 5 star to your campus and developing them into an NFL player, or getting a 2 or 3 star Detroit? Thank you, Anwar. Or getting a 2 or 3 star and developing them into an NFL player? The answer is yes, every time. Yes. It is not one or the other. It's yes. Certain programs, it's one or the other. At Texas, yes, all of it. You want all of that. And this is a great mixed list of all of it.
I'm reminded of Saban because one of the things about Saban is when he would recruit, he'll take some flyers on guys, 3 stars, occasional 2 stars. And it kind of gets the benefit of the doubt, but the players are still ranked as 3 stars or 2 stars. They would turn a 3-star center into a first-round draft pick or something like that. And it says a lot about evaluations. I think nobody wants to hear this, but attaboy Tom Herman on some of this stuff. Because when we look at this, of the names on this list, Jonathan Brooks, no on Keelan, no on Adonai, Jordan Whittington, can't say that about Worthy, but here we go. Sanders, Jones, Murphy, Sweat, Jalen Ford. That's 7 of the 11 guys were Tom Herman recruits that he evaluated.
Catch, one of the guys in the chat has an idea. 3-star scout, Tom Herman.
Look, as much as we know how it ended with Herman, and everybody kind of hates Tom, right? I mean, look, I get accused of being an asshole all the time. Tom, welcome to the party. But, for all of the grief and stuff that Tom did wrong, he evaluated these guys really well. And I think Murphy was maybe the last recruit that Texas committed before he lost his job. I think Murphy committed December 19th or something like that. And then ends up,
yes. Murphy committed November 18th, 2020. Jalen Ford to commit. Murphy was November 18th, 2020.
I was off by a month. I said December 19th. It was November 18th.
You're very close. You're right.
One of the last guys that committed, right? And anyway, I think what this really speaks about Sarkisian is development. And I think we talk about Kyle Flood. I think if Christian Jones goes pro last year, I think he gets drafted. But I think he could get undrafted. I think he's like a 6th or 7th round guy. But I was convinced that he would get drafted, kind of like Tavondre Sweat, who would have gone higher than Jones. But coming back for this 1 year, you see Christian Jones go to the Senior Bowl and impress, and suddenly NFL guys are saying that Christian Jones could be on the bubble line for 3rd or 4th round, that he could go end of day 2 or early day 3. And that's a completely different conversation about what we think Christian Jones's value is versus what it was just 12 months ago. So I think the next step for Sarkisian will be to have a lot of his guys permeate this list, right? So we know they're coming. We can see what's on the depth chart and go, well, yeah, they recruited those guys. And, you can kind of go position by position and know that they're going to have guys. But the development thing this staff can point to, and Anwar, I'm thinking about Chris Jackson a year ago. He might not have, remember when you did the interview with him, he started behind the 8 ball. What he'll be able to do now, whether he deserves all the credit or not, he's going to be able to say, look, man, every single guy that started for me last year is at the combine. They may all start, and he'll be able to, we always talk about who gets to claim the numbers. Whenever a new coach shows up, Chad, that first group of guys gets drafted, and it's like, no, I developed them. Well, no, I recruited them. If you're Chris Jackson, and year one of wide receiver recruiting at Texas was kind of difficult. They got Ryan Wingo, which kind of saves the wide receiver class. But there was a point when they had, Livingstone and then Freddie DeBose, and that was kind of it. And it was like, okay, well, one guy's hurt, and the other guy used to be hurt. The common theme is these dudes have been hurt. Who else is in it? They get Wingo. That was as much about Sarkisian as anything. So I think Chris Jackson's a guy, if you're asking me who is the biggest winner of today, I think Keelan Robinson's on the list because there were times he didn't play and he still got an invite. But I think both Kenny Baker for having both of those D tackles there, and really this will come to fruition on draft day more than anything else. But the same thing for Chris Jackson. I think being able to point to an entire starting unit of players and say, if you develop and let me develop you and you play for us, you're going to play in the NFL. Here is the example. And that helps, man. That is oftentimes when you think about certain positions, sometimes the tiebreaker really is this school hasn't produced any guys in the NFL at my position. This other school I'm looking at has produced a bunch. Why would I want to take a risk as a recruit when I can just go to the school that's proven? This stuff helps Texas answer questions that previously they haven't. I know, Anwar, we've done offensive linemen a bunch, right? Remember, it was like 87 years in a row where Texas didn't have an offensive lineman drafted. So when Connor Williams alone, it was like, hey, they got a guy. It's possible. Yeah. And to be able to tack these on the way they have, just super impressive and critical.
By the way, talk about claiming. Stan Drayton is going to claim like Jonathan Brooks and Keelan Robinson. Like, he's going to add that. Like Stan Drayton on draft day is going to have the picture of him and Jonathan Brooks at Women's High School and stuff. And like, hey, congratulations to Jonathan. Like, Stan Drayton's going to add guys to his resume. Tom Herman is going to add guys to his resume. Like, it's just who decides what. They all take a piece of the pie.
Tashard Choice is another. He's going to be like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan. Now I'm taking Jonathan Brooks, Keelan Robinson. Yeah. I'm claiming all the running backs.
Everybody claims it. So it's fun. It's hilarious once that's going to happen. But to your point, as far as Chris Jackson is concerned, the thing that Chris Jackson didn't have from a recruiting standpoint, he's not been able to say, hey, I put guys in the pros, because that was what he does. Now he can talk about, I can coach you up, but he can't say I put anyone in the pro. Now Chris Jackson today is able to get on the call with all the recruits and say, did you see all my guys? Did you see Jordan Whittington? Oh yeah, I know. So, you sent me a screenshot of some dude named Rodolfo who talked about him just being a blocker or something like that. Well, how about my blockers going to the combine? And then let me give you the list of all the other people who had their quote-unquote stats who ain't going to the combine. Now go through that list. Show me the Mizzou guys who are going to the combine. Show me the Ole Miss people going to the combine. Show me those guys. And now all of a sudden he has that street cred where now he could walk in. He's not just, Chris Jackson, some dude who was transformed into a college coach. He's like, no, you're a college coach who can develop talent and even be able to say, man, look what I did in a year with some of these guys. Like,
Anwar, I got more wide receivers at the combine than OU has in their entire program. That's what I did.
I mean, even Stoops didn't make it. Like, you know what I'm saying? The Stoops have been playing for 25 years, and that guy didn't get a combine invite. And everyone's like, that's, OU people like, that's a snub. And like, man, sometimes, Chris Jackson, he's able to tack that on his resume. I think you're 100% correct. Like, if there's a guy that benefits a lot, he definitely, in this cycle, should be a lot better.
Anwar, you didn't realize that new rule at the combine? Once you're 35, they don't let you go to the combine. That's why Stoops can't go. Just once your 35th birthday, you can be president at that point, but they don't let you go to the combine anymore. I think that's fun.
Somebody right now is like, guys, Christian Jones, you need to just stop.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good point. I got a question for all three of you guys.
Christian Jones is going down to like the Dominican Republic to change his birth certificate. I'm 18. I'm 16. What are you talking about, guys?
Danny Amante. All right. So I got a question for all three of you guys. Jason, I'll start with you. Let's talk about these guys rolling by here on the ticker. Who do you think's going first? And will it be first round for you? Are you in that Byron Murphy camp? Do you think Worthy's going to go freaky at the combine? And then do you think a Longhorn is sneaking into the first round?
I'm not a draft expert by any means, so I will probably lean on Ketch's answer, but I've seen a lot of projections about Byron Murphy lately, so he'd probably be the guy. But I could see, Worthy's kind of a smaller guy, so he's not going to wow anybody in that way. But, I could see him impressing him, obviously, with his 40 time. We'll see how Adonai Mitchell tests JT Sanders, obviously. But I guess if I'm picking one, just based on reports I've seen and mock drafts and things of late, it does seem like Byron Murphy is really kind of the hot name. So I'd probably go Byron Murphy. And yeah, I think he's certainly going to be getting that first round.
Yeah. Anwar, what do you think?
I've got 4 potentially. I think Murphy's the first guy off the board. I think Adonai is the second guy off the board. I think Jatavian, because the Brock, Brock Bowers is at the Georgia tight end. I think once he's taken, I think that the only other really good tight end in this class is Jatavian, and there's just a bunch of other guys after that. So I can definitely see a team just saying, to hell with it, let's get our tight end. The one I don't know is where Tavondre is going to fall in. I don't know if he falls down to the second or if he's maybe a late first kind of guy. But I've got 3 for sure. And then I got Tavondre, and I'm not quite sure about Xavier at this moment, but 3 for sure in the first.
Wow. Okay. 3 in the first round.
Yeah, 3 first round. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Ketch, what do you think? Does number 90 lead him up to the stage?
Yeah, I think in the end, this is going to eventually be pretty consensus. I think Murphy's going to go in the top 15. He plays a premium position. The more people evaluate his film, they love him. I think he'll perform well at the combine. So I think I can remember some previous Byron Murphy conversations, including one before last season where I scoffed at the idea that Byron Murphy would go pro. And Anwar was like, I don't know, Ketch, I'm telling you. I got people who are telling me that Murphy would go pro if there's an opportunity to do so. And I was like, what round isn't he going to go in? He hasn't even performed yet. And hey, when I'm wrong, I'm like baby's father in Dirty Dancing. I say I'm wrong. And I was wrong. I think everything Anwar said makes a lot of sense. I think for the reasons that he outlined, I do think Xavier Worthy, though, also has it. I think Worthy's going to be made by what he runs. And if Worthy pops off a big number, either at the combine and or at his pro day, he's got as much to gain as anybody, because I think people will put on the film and I think they'll just wonder, like, how fast is he really? And if he's in the 4.3s, everybody's looking for the next Tyreek Hill. Everybody's looking for guys that do the hard thing easy. He gets open. So I think he's got a chance. But guys, anything else? We got to wrap this video up. We're at a time frame where we got stuff to do, people to see, kids to take care of. As we wrap things up, final comments?
I'll just throw real quick. I'll let Cody make my last comment. He just gave some thoughts. He thinks Murphy's between 11 and 20. Worthy has a shot anywhere from 21 and on. And he says Sweat could swing in if he weighs 345 in Indy.
I mean, what is he on a starvation diet? Like, what are you talking about? Dude, what are you talking about, Cody? Dude wouldn't even weigh in at the Senior Bowl just a week or so ago. You think a guy who's like that's a guy who's like, hey man, I've been enjoying the good life for the past couple of weeks.
Is he going to be closer to 345 or 400? It's going to be close, right?
It could go either way.
Man,
Come on, Andre, get in the sauna in the steam room and lose some water weight and get on that scale close to 345. Because I do think Cody's right. If big man's if he's like 370 at the combine, he's going to scare some teams away. Who realize how close to 400 pounds that is.
Yep.
And you can't name a really successful defensive lineman in the NFL that was 370 pounds. Like that it's just
like Gilbert Brown, right? But like we're talking about exceptions to the rule. It's like when people point out, hey, you could be sub 6 feet and play D tackle. Look at Puna Ford. It's like, well,
correct.
Punas don't grow on trees. And there was also a reason why he was an undrafted free agent. Now, he stuck around for a long time, but it is what it is. Fellas, it's 4:42. I know we got to go. Anybody else? Anything else? I don't want to hold Anwar up. Going once. Going twice. Sold American, guys. Hit that thumbs up button for us, please. We love the thumbs up. Smash it, if you will. Notifications, subscriptions to the channel, all that stuff. For myself, for Chad, for Jason, for Anwar, we'll do this again on Thursday, the second modcast of the week. But for everybody at Orange Bloods Live, you guys have a great rest of the day. Good job, Longhorns, all 11 on you, and all of the coaches that had an involvement in making that happen. We'll see you soon. Later.